Hi, I'm Gary with Walt Disney Imagineering, and today we're at the Vacation Kingdom, the Walt Disney World Resort. And the heart of the resort is the Magic Kingdom. So sit back, relax, while I take you on a whirlwind tour of some of our favorite Imagineering stories of the park. At Disney, we're known for storytelling. All of our parks have themes that guide the stories that are told within them. Here at the Magic Kingdom, the theme is Magic Made Real. It's the ability to step into the fantasy worlds which we had already created on film and television. And our story in the Magic Kingdom begins right here in Town Square. And in the center of the park is where the park was dedicated by one of our founding fathers, Roy Disney, Walt Disney's brother. Roy is interpreted life-size by Disney legend Blaine Gibson. And he's sitting on the bench with Minnie Mouse scooched right up next to him like the favorite uncle that he really is. Earlier in my career, I had the great pleasure to spend time with Blaine, and he told me a charming little story. If you'll notice, Roy has his hand out, and Minnie's hand is cupped up on top of it. By supporting Minnie, he's really supporting his brother Walt, which he did his entire life. Roy insisted upon having Mickey Mouse stand by his side during the dedication. He felt that that was the closest thing to having his brother Walt by his side. Here we are in Town Square on Main Street, USA. Now, many people think this is Walt's hometown of Marceline, Missouri, but it's Main Street anywhere in the United States at the turn of the century. Town Square is the oldest part of our town, and we know that because of all the civic organizations that we find here. When Walt Disney asked the first Imagineers to create Disneyland, they confessed they didn't have a clue how to build an amusement park. So they built the park the only way they knew how, the way you make a movie. As guests step onto Main Street, USA, it slowly comes in like a pan shot to reveal the castle, beckoning people down the street. Now our setting is turn of the century America. This is when small towns and villages were emerging into cities, and that was a hugely optimistic and prosperous time within our history. We had beautiful architectural moldings and such. The gas lamp was turning into the electric lamps. Horseless carriages were on the same street with the horse-drawn carriages. It's not unusual at all to have people walk down Main Street, USA, and just burst out into song and dance for no apparent reason, and nobody thinks that's unusual. In the Central Plaza, we find our second founding father's statue, and that's of Walt Disney and Mickey Mouse. It's called the Partners statue. Now again, this was done by Disney legend Blaine Gibson, who knew Walt well. Now Blaine shared with me two statements in which he believes Walt is saying to Mickey as he points down Main Street, USA, "Look at all that we've accomplished, and look at all the happy people." Now I'm going to go back to that scene-by-scene story that I set up in Town Square. The goal was to reduce the stress of experiencing the story. And so when you come to Town Square, you really only have two choices. You're either going to go back under that train station, or you're going to be drawn down the street to Cinderella Castle. But here, there's actually 5 pathways from the Central Plaza. But are there really? If we look over towards Adventureland, you can't even see the marquee that tells you that you're there. The bridge over into Liberty Square, you can't see Big Thunder, you can't see anything. When you go into Fantasyland, you have an 18-story fairy tale castle. Wait, but don't go there just yet. Let's save that for the end of the program where I've got an extra little surprise for you. Or, as you step into Tomorrowland, there's a giant gateway and the spinning Orbitron that's inviting you into the land. Tomorrowland is dedicated to our shared aspirations for the future. Right now I'm standing in front of one of the attractions that is closest to our Imagineering hearts, and that's the Carousel of Progress. It's often said that Walt Disney had one foot firmly in the past and another planted firmly in the future. In the mid-1960s, Walt Disney and his Imagineers envisioned a thrilling rocket flight through the cosmos. But it wasn't until 1975, right here in the Magic Kingdom, when Space Mountain would finally open. incorporating innovative technology that would make Space Mountain the first computer-controlled roller coaster system in the world. So here we are in Fantasyland, the happiest kingdom of them all. A few years ago, Imagineers had an opportunity to enhance the stories that we tell here in Fantasyland. We realized that a lot of our classic fairy tales take place in a setting of a castle, its courtyard, and an enchanted forest. And so we're going to incorporate another filmmaking technique, like a cut in a film where you move from one scene to the next scene. Now, when you're in the enchanted forest and you look through the castle walls to the castle courtyard, you have the beautiful Prince Charming's carousel, drawing people from one scene into the next. But if the audience comes from the castle courtyard, they see the absolute opposite, the beautiful organic shapes and deep earth tone colors of the enchanted forest, and the kinetics of the Seven Dwarfs mine train pull the guests from the castle courtyard scene into the enchanted forest. So now I get to share one of my personal favorite stories of designs by Imagineers in the Magic Kingdom. Here we are at the Be Our Guest restaurant, and the design of the restaurant has a theme to trace the evolution of the beast's heart throughout the story. Above the doorway, we're reminded of when the old woman offers a rose to the prince in exchange for a night's stay out of the cold. This is where that happened. So let's see how this story unfolds. This is where the prince's heart is at its coldest. So we see only cold, hard materials. But of course, the prince isn't a total loss, so there's just a little bit of softness in two tapestries that we find in here. You see a lion that represents the strength of the beast, and then on the other side of the archway is a unicorn, which represents either the innocence of Belle or perhaps even the innocence of the young prince himself. So as the audience moves from the foyer into the armory, we see things start to soften up a little bit with a carpet on the floor. The suits of armor have a human form to them. We then move into the sitting room. This is the first time you see wood represented. You have lots of drapery. There's a fireplace. And so it's in this room where Belle treated the beast's wounds and literally started to melt his heart. The ballroom. In the ballroom, bathed in the golden light of 3 chandeliers, Belle and the beast danced, and this is the moment in which they fell in love. So just the progression of moving through the restaurant tells the story of the evolution of the beast's heart throughout the fairy tale. And of course, as guests exit the restaurant, they are treated to a classic Disney happy ending. Now we find ourselves in Liberty Square. Now the concept for Liberty Square started at Disneyland in a small area of the park just off of Main Street, USA, called Liberty Street. But for a variety of reasons, we chose not to build Liberty Street. And so when the opportunity came to tell the stories of the Magic Kingdom, we brought back the story of Liberty Street, we built it here in the Magic Kingdom, and called it Liberty Square.
I'm Chef Julia with Walt Disney World Food and Beverage. Welcome to Adventureland, the home of the Dole Whip.
Last but certainly not least is Adventureland. In Adventureland, Walt Disney wanted to take his audience to exotic locations around the world that most would only see in movie theaters. Adventureland is divided up into 4 exotic realms. The first you encounter is British colonial Africa, where the audience can take a river cruise through the jungles of the Nile. Next, we find ourselves in a desert oasis, where you can ride a magic carpet right out of the Arabian Nights. A few steps further, you'll find yourself in Polynesia, featuring an enchanted tiki room. And finally, we find ourselves in the Southern Isles, amongst swashbuckling pirates at the Pirates of the Caribbean. So now we've come full circle. We're right back here at the Central Plaza, and it's time for our last and favorite story of the Magic Kingdom, Cinderella Castle. And as a special treat, we're gonna take you inside to a location that most guests have never seen, and that's Cinderella Castle Suite. So follow me. So just like everything else we do at Imagineering, the story that we tell in Cinderella Castle Suite is going to progress scene by scene by scene. Tapestries feature elements from the Cinderella story, such as a pumpkin to represent her pumpkin coach. And my favorite piece of set decoration is this beautiful grandfather clock, which is always at 1 minute to midnight, because in Cinderella Castle Suite, the magic never ends. In the fairy tale, it's Cinderella's pumpkin coach that delivers her to the castle. So for our Cinderella Castle Suite story, it's the elevator that delivers her to the suite. You have the tufted walls that line the elevator. When you step into the elevator, you step onto a handmade mosaic floor inspired by the crest on the back of the coach itself. When guests step off the elevator on the suite level, we see a beautiful glass case where Cinderella keeps her crown, her scepter, and her one remaining glass slipper. It's also very common for royal families to be patrons of artists. The artist featured in Cinderella Castle Suite is Disney legend Mary Blair, who worked on the animated film Cinderella. It was also important to the designers that you didn't just see the entire suite the moment you stepped off the elevator. So you step into the foyer, you'll come in at an angle, see the large fireplace, and then be drawn into the bedchamber. So one of the challenges was, how do you account for the modern amenity of, say, a flat screen TV? We asked the princess to do a sitting, creating the portrait that we see above the mantelpiece. So with just the click of a button, pixie dust will magically transform the portrait into a television. So this set piece is a real antique 17th century secretary desk, but it's been equipped with modern amenities so that guests can plug in their laptop, charge their cell phones, perhaps write a letter on the custom stationery from the suite itself. One of the ways we tell the princess's story is through the 6 stained glass windows in 6 chapters. Cinderella came from humble means. They didn't really feel like she would have gold gilded swan faucets within the bath chamber. So with that, we have beautiful French reproduction hand pumps and a handmade ball-peened brass basin for the water. Another direct tribute to the mosaics in the breezeway are these 3 beautiful hand-cut tile mosaics that you see in the bath chamber. So now it's time to say goodbye, and where better than in front of Cinderella Castle, where you may have noticed she's received a stunning magical royal makeover to celebrate our 50th anniversary on October 1st. Over the next few months, we'll be adding golden bunting and a huge royal crest. There'll be nighttime magic that will make the castle truly a beacon of magic to the world. So farewell, thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.